Okay, you're all set, Councillor Jaworski, or Deputy Mayor Jaworski, excuse me.
No worries. Even myself, I'm not used to it yet. All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Capo, and welcome to members of the public who may be watching on YouTube and to the members of the South Glengarry's Heritage Committee for our Friday, January 21st meeting. So thank you very much for being in attendance. If I could, I'm calling the meeting to order, and now in our package, Ms. Campo had circulated our agenda. It's very brief, but we do still need to see if there's any additions or that anyone would like to see.
Stephanie, the only thing I wanted to ask of fellow committee members, Nutfield Track is an add-on to, Ian had talked about transportation, agriculture. And I was thinking that our early refugees from the Upper Mohawk Valley kind of walked up to South Glengarry area. The First Nations people were already here and a few settlers. And there's a section of Indian lands called Nutfield that go as a walking plus a river route. And it was the one thing that I, in addition to peanut line and moccasin and the many stagecoach, that kind of thing, that might fit in with the theme that the committee is considering.
Well, perfect. Yeah, no, definitely. And I think definitely we can just, I've made a note of it and we can definitely discuss that. Definitely, I'll make sure that we touch on that in our discussion. But in terms of the agenda, is there anything other than the item we have on the docket to discuss the plaque project? Is there anything else that we need to add? No? Okay, so can I have a, I guess, this is you and Alan and Penny, can one of you move to make a motion to approve the agenda?
I can second Penny's motion.
Okay, perfect. Does anyone oppose? All right, so the agenda is approved. The minutes were also in the package. Again, fairly concise that we had our discussion last time. Was there any comments, additions or omissions to the agenda? Okay, so,
I'll move we accept them.
thank you. Penny, will you second that?
What am I seconding?
The acceptance of the minutes of our previous meeting.
I second their acceptance.
Perfect. Anyone opposed? Excellent. All right, so now we can jump right in now that we've gotten that part out of the way. So before, now, as we begin our discussion, Todd, was there anything that you wanted to open with or anything that you wanted to share based on last discussion or what time that's passed between now and then?
I can just briefly, Madam Chair, just update you in terms of where we're at with other townships, and that might help stimulate some discussion as well. So I received an email this morning actually from North Glengarry, and if you give me 1 second here, but they had made some suggestions in terms of where they would like to see some plaques located. The first location was at Island Park and Mill Pond, and it's would depict its history and impact on the community. And the plaque will be placed at the park, which is obviously municipal property. The second option for another plaque is, I guess, specific to the Kenyan Agricultural Society and its history and impact on the community. That plaque could be placed near the Glengarry Sports Hall of Fame or on another portion of land owned or operated by the Kenyan Agricultural Society. That's only 2 options, and I haven't had a chance yet to reply to Anne Leduc in North Glengarry, but as you know, there's 3, in fact, plaques to be done. So I just want to clarify, she may be suggesting that one of those options that I just mentioned may include 2 plaques. So I just wanted to update you on that in North Glengarry. Excuse me, in South Dundas. I had a great conversation with an individual from the Historical Society in South Dundas. They're suggesting 3 locations for plaques, one in Williamsburg that would depict the Dominion Hotel as well as the Lockton Lodge and a street view of the community in that plaque. The other one would be in Brinston, very similar in terms of depicting what the Brinston looked like back in the day. And then the final one in South Dundas is Dundela, which, as many of you know, is home to the Macintosh Apple. So there would be some references to that, as well as a general street view of Dundela. And there was South Stormont as well. We've had a great conversation with the Historical Society there. We're looking at plaques in kind of the Quinns Inn area, and it's really kind of early days. Part of my job will be to liaise with the community, especially the owners of Quinns Inn. I haven't had a chance to do that yet, so I will be doing that. But there will be 3 plaques in and around St. Andrews and the Bonneville area. The specific, obviously, Quinns Inn. There was back in the day there was McPhail's hotel, as well as O'Leary's Inn, which is, I believe, located near St. Andrews. So other conversations are taking place, other decisions are being made, and it's starting to take shape.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for providing that additional information. Definitely, it's helpful, I think, to know sort of how the other townships are looking at this. Okay. So now, so to our discussion and sort of building on what Penny had mentioned, also about some of the points that had been brought up last time. I know, Todd, like one of the things you had mentioned was, looking at something that would have potential for high traffic so that it could be fairly visible, with a preference for something that is on township owned property. And then some of the things we had discussed last time, there's the Williamstown Fairgrounds, and then that sort of moved towards the Peanut Line. We talked a lot about that. Also, there was the Glen Walter Waterfront Trail bike path space as well that I think I brought up. And I don't know, to Penny's point, where that fits in with the what you call the Indian Lands and the Nutfield Tract that goes up towards Ottawa. I don't know if there's a linkage there. And there was the point of like the transportation sort of theme, where was there's Green Valley, Baynesville with the Moccasin Railway, the Kings Highway. There's also like a view of a recreational theme, or also like an old historical theme, sort of like the history before amalgamation, sort of prominent places. And I think one of the last things that Ian had brought up was talking about one of the sites. I think he was saying, maybe I missed, was in the North Lancaster area where they were growing flax and processing it for parachutes, and also and cheese factories. We touched a bit on cheese factories as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Penny, did you want to start, or Alan, whoever's more comfortable, in terms of what you've been thinking since our last meeting on sites that you're sort of more leaning towards than others?
Well, I haven't got so many suggestions about where the plaques could be placed. I thought, I'm not sure which are the least plaqued areas that might have some traffic. That I haven't been out and about as much as I used to be.
Mm.
So my memory is, I'm not sure where all the plaques currently are. I think Ian had talked about themes, and I kind of like that because it accounted for everything there is in South Glengarry to me. Your recreation, your agriculture, because you have to move goods, and with goods you with your boating coming in and all that. And so I wasn't sure how you might put it on a plaque. or how you would divide it into a plaque, or which things you'd like to focus on. But Alan, you'll have good ideas for that. I can be quite pleased with just about anything.
I had a question for Todd. I was speaking with a member of the North Glengarry Heritage Committee after our meeting, and I mentioned that I understood from Todd's presentation that really the preference would be to have these plaques on a municipal structure or building. So I assume that wouldn't include places like fire halls and so forth, which are not, need to be kept clear. But I did start thinking about, just Green Valley as an example, and I kind of had to think, well, what public land is there in Green Valley? And the only thing I've come up with, for example, there is the new Green Valley Recreation Center, which is off of 34, but it is a place of congregation when times are normal. There's events there, and I did just go over and look at the building, and either side of the front door really. There's good space for for an interpretive type of plaque. So I was kind of thinking generally, in relating to Penny's question of, we don't want to plaque places that are kind of heavily plaqued, but what do we have available in South Glengarry Township in terms of public, like say municipal buildings like the Green Valley Rec Center that kind of could be location for a plaque, because these are, the municipal buildings would be places where people would travel to and congregate.
Madam Chair, if I can make a comment. I respect the fact that you're looking at locations, and I also respect the fact that we're trying to ensure that we keep the public land. But I would respectfully suggest that location, we might have the cart before the horse just a little bit. The location is obviously important to this, and I spent a lot of time talking about it. But the real focus I would suggest to you at this point is, what are the stories we're going to tell, and what are the information that we're going to present to people? So I guess that would be my question with respect to Green Valley. If that's a great place for a plaque, that's wonderful, but we don't want to get into a situation where we're trying to find information just because we want to put a plaque in Green Valley. I would suggest to you respectfully, we would try to find a story or something to hang our hat on, and then we'll find a location that we can attach to that story. But you may have some ideas about Green Valley, and I haven't given you an opportunity to say what they are, but just my suggestion at this point.
Yeah, no, I did start the other way around, thinking of what could go in Green Valley, and then I was just thinking, there's a paucity of places to put it, and I came up with one which is there. But I could say a few things. I've been thinking about a couple of themes. I know Stephanie and Penny have mentioned something about in relationship to Indigenous connections to to Glengarry and to the Indigenous communities. And I have been looking over the last while at some items in the old Glengarry Newses, and in the course of doing so, I've just kind of noticed, certainly very active sporting element, sporting connections between, Akwesasne and Glengarry through lacrosse. And this was particular, evident in the, I'd say the 30s, 40s, right up to the 50s. And that's, we're surrounded today. I don't think there is a, lacrosse team in Glengarry, but I'm sure some players are playing for some of the teams that surround us, in number in Ottawa. There's Kagnawagi, Akwesasne, Tyendinaga, and then there's about 6 or 7 other groupings in Eastern Ontario. So we would have some sports there. Anyway, that was just one. And then I do remember that Green Valley actually won the Eastern Ontario Lacrosse Championship in the 1950s. So anyway, but that just gets to the point that we might be able to think about whether there are some possibilities for an interrelationship between South Glengarry and the Indigenous communities. And that's, it may well be some other topic. I just threw that out. The main thing I've been thinking about in Green Valley over the last couple of days is really about its why it's there, and why it's kind of grown the way it is. It's kind of unusual geologically in the sense that it is looking over a very broad green valley, which is about a mile wide, and I think that's kind of was carved out as the glacial waters kind of left this area. But every time I travel that span, I often think about its geological connection, and the reason it's there, I think, has something significant to do with the Canadian Pacific Railroad as it was going coast to coast, because the 50-mile marker on the CPR from Montreal to Smith Falls and Toronto is just several hundred meters just west of Green Valley. It's the marker is still there, and I kind of think it was a strategic location, in terms of. And the other interesting thing is, in terms of thoughts about what to do in our presentations, I've been thinking what we really need are some captivating picture or some captivating pictures. And I think the CP logo, and particularly in Green Valley, the train station was there from, I think, 1890 to 1965. We still have photos of it, but it's also linked with two neighboring stations, which are right next door, one in Glennorman, which is not very far east of it, and the other in Glenroy. So that's kind of one of the things I thought, CP, there's a lot of people who are interested in CP history. And I thought, well, that's something that could be catchy. I know there's one good photograph of the Green Valley station, along with its the station lawn. Alan McDonald has it now, but I've looked at some just online, and there's a lot of train enthusiasts, and out there I saw the Green Valley station, but it's not. It's misidentified. It could be the Glennorman station. So there are these things that might be there. So anyway, that's where I've been going, thinking. Question: if we had a good story to say, where would we put it? For example, in Green Valley. And I just came down to a location. So that's kind of what's rambling around in my brain right now. So.
Yeah, if I could to sort of expand on that, like Green Valley topic. So, and I think it's because, like, as Penny correctly pointed out last time, she brought up the Glengarry roots, and I was been looking at the Glengarry roots, and I'm making the assumption that a lot of the plaqued items are on the Glengarry roots, and
Very much so.
Okay, and the sort of that area of the township has, like, the Green Valley area has less plaques up there, but the one plaque that they do have, that I'm trying to pull up here as I'm talking, has to do with the what was it called?
Green Valley School question?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, also, which also recognizing like the Franco-Ontarian prominence there and history. so I would think, I don't think we could do a plaque in Green Valley, I think, without sort of incorporating that element as well. Or at least that in my mind, that seems to be part of the story there as well. So there's, transportation story, the Franco-Ontarian history, the school question. I mean, these are all, I think, important stories. But question for Todd, are disparate stories like that things that can be brought together, or?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to ask you to repeat that. The stream kind of broke up and I didn't catch what you guys were talking about. I just caught the end. Maybe you can kind of just go over that again.
Okay, so I was on the topic of Green Valley. Green Valley has, a rich Franco-Ontarian heritage as well. And like one of the known issues had to do with like the school question and being able to have the right to be educated in French. And so I was saying that if you were looking at Green Valley and the transportation discussion or story, but I don't think you could not leave out this other part of the story, right, of that community. So I would think that, and so my question to you is like bringing together sort of those disparate topics. Is that something that you see working on something like this?
Absolutely. I think that could absolutely work. So if the decision is that we put a couple of plaques in Green Valley, one specific to the CPR line and the history of the community's attachment to rail, and I can foresee a beautiful painting being done of a train going by in that old station that you talked about that went from 1890 to 1965. That'd be a fantastic image. And then if we also wanted to talk about, to your point, Madam Chair, about the Franco-Ontarian history and I think I understood you to say some challenges with respect to being educated in French and how the community kind of overcame that. The only thing we require to do that, and I think it's a great story, is just some imagery. So I don't know if we've got some imagery of the old school or anything like that we can turn into a painting. But I think those are great. So just because we've decided that we want to do a plaque specific to transportation via the rail line, it doesn't mean that we have to maintain that theme throughout. So if we wanted to talk about something completely different, to your point about Franco-Ontario education, that's fine. We can absolutely do that.
Yeah.
Green Valley was a place for joie de vivre. It's most famous for its dancehall, which kind of got us through the 30s into the 60s, so.
Where was the dance hall located?
Well, it would be right on the in the center of town on the east side of the street. So there's the Caboto, and then there's it would be halfway between the Caboto and in the middle between the Caboto and the railroad tracks. So.
Okay.
Well, if I may, Madam Chair, those sound like three potentially really good ideas. If it would be the committee's desire to focus on Green Valley, those are three great options to consider for plaques.
Now Todd, you're saying 3 plaques in Green Valley, or you're
if that's the will of the committee is to do something like that, we could do that. If they don't want that, if the committee's desire is to place plaques in other locations in South Glengarry, then that would be my suggestion that we pick something specific, because we don't want a plaque talking about a bunch of different things. The plaque should speak to one specific topic or story, whether that's Franco-Ontario education, the history of the rail line, or the dance hall. Would be my suggestion that we pick one. You could maybe get away with doing like a big photo, let's say, a big painting of the rail line, and then down the right side of the plaque, you remember in the examples I showed you, there were other photos and other facets of local history. You could mention something of that in there, but we would have to pick something that's dominant to be included in that painting.
Okay, so because that was my question. My question was, can we put like 3 different stories on the one plaque?
Yeah, I would try to avoid that respectfully.
Or
well,
2,
one thing that, if I could just mention, I think it was mentioned in the last gathering, that we perhaps should be thinking about this holistically in the sense that these three plaques are really the first of let's say a number of others that can follow. And we might want to think about any of the ideas that we have, kind of putting them into our inventory. I wouldn't think 3 plaques in Green Valley would be politically the right way to go on this, but I think as long as we have good ideas, there's going to be rounds 2 and 3 and so forth, and that allows us to kind of build on these initial 3.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, just my thought.
If I can share my screen just briefly with the committee, I can give you an idea of what I'm talking about, if that's okay.
Well, while you're setting that up, Todd, I'm sorry with you, Alan. I don't think 3 plaques to start in Green Valley really makes sense, but I think to your point, it's like we have other ideas, have a bank of ideas that potentially, if we can move this forward, we can take from. But I do like the idea. Because I think Green Valley, a lot of folks know a little bit less about the community and its evolution. Like I'd never heard about the dance hall. That's kind of a neat story.
So just to give you an idea of what I mean by what I was just suggesting. So this is a perfect example of what I mean. So we did a plaque, and this will be installed with respect to the Water Street Arena in Montreal Road in Cornwall. So you can have different things, but it's all part of the same story, right? So we're talking about the arena, but the Rocket played there, and the Royals won a Memorial Cup while playing out of that facility, and then there was also senior hockey. So it's not like we're talking about a bunch of different stories and you're trying to combine it all into one plaque. You can tell different stories of the same theme, but you try to maintain that theme on the whole plaque, right? So that would be my suggestion. If you wanted to do something on the history of Green Valley, then we could try and wrap all those things into that one plaque, and that would be doable. But I just want to make it, I guess, clear that in terms of a painting and stuff like that, you really have to pick something that will stand out, right? So you don't want 3 paintings, you want one. That would be the suggestion I would make. If we're trying to include all of those elements in Green Valley, then you could have a main photo, and I'll suggest a train on a track, and then down the right side you could have references. Oh, there was also an incredibly popular dance hall in Green Valley, and there was also I don't know how the Franco education piece, I don't know enough about it to make a determination, but there may be an opportunity to try and weave that in there too. I just don't know how that would work.
Yeah, something like an image. I mean, I don't know what images we have access to or that could be recreated, but something sort of like there's like a streetscape, right, from the train tracks down or something, or I don't know.
That could work too, and then perhaps that's the theme. It's just a snapshot in time of Green Valley when you had trains going through as often as they did, and there's the dance hall, and references could be made to the facility where the Franco-Ontario education, and once again I don't know about that topic, but that could be incorporated as well.
It's interesting. It wasn't called the dance hall. It was called the Green Valley. In English, it was called the Green Valley Pavilion.
Yes.
And in French, it was the Pavillon. You don't, so it kind of had an elegant kind of name as well, which kind of worked very well in English and French. Yeah. But one of the things looking at the arena in Cornwall, that's an artist's rendition, isn't it?
It absolutely is, yeah. So in some cases, the plaques are based on specific photos. Other times, the artist will take a number of photos, or will speak with individuals about a particular topic, and will develop something specific. He'll just come up with that as he's talking. And this plaque I just showed you, I believe, if I remember correctly, there was some old photos of public skating, and that's where he kind of got the idea for doing that particular painting.
So moving to some other places, I know Ian mentioned last week, like North Lancaster is probably also a place that doesn't have an excess of plaques, and Ian was talking about the flax building there, which is still on the landscape, and it is kind of an example of resourcefulness in terms of agriculture for the area. That one is kind of stuck in my mind. It could be in the center of North Lancaster, but it does lend itself to perhaps having some accompanying smaller photos with it. So I would, and then perhaps looking for a third site in Old Charlottenburg. Green Valley kind of covers it. Half of it is in Lancaster and half of it's in Charlottenburg, so it kind of covers both. But you might want to think of some area of Charlottenburg that could be highlighted by a plaque.
Glen Walter is definitely underplaqued relative to, say, Williamstown.
Yep.
And Lancaster town proper is likely underrepresented, but I'm not so sure because I don't know if the wharf has been plaqued
No.
by local or Ontario or feds. Not sure
yet.
about that.
Not yet, but that's the one, Penny, that I'm mentioning last time, that there probably will be some project in not the too distant future about having something there separate to this. So
you're not interested in adding it to be looked at this time, or?
Well, I would suggest it's probably not necessary.
What's in the works?
Well, it's all. I mean, it's still preliminary. I mean, it involves a couple of partners, so like. It's not really at the stage yet to get into, but I did want to mention that it's likely out there, and then also because council has some awareness to it. Likely, but if we come back and propose one there, they'll probably say, well, there's something in the works there, so they won't look at that proposal. That's my feeling.
So, well, that's interesting.
But on your point, Kenny, of Glen Walter, I mean, like I've got the Glengarry routes map up, right? And so like North Lancaster, there is one point. There's the Leclerc Mansion that is on the map, but to your point, Glen Walter, there is there's no plaque at all. So I mean, that the water, what I think was the waterfront trail you had mentioned last time, that might be something that would be interesting. But what else would you see on a Glen Walter plaque?
There's the Catholic parish there. Yep. There's Salem Church, the little United Church there would be one of the earlier churches in the whole area. Bethune times, so early 1815's idea. And Stephanie, one thing I'm not sure with this particular project, are you looking for projects early 1800s or right up until, say, the 1900s, or I'm just.
I don't think we were given any kind of parameters on that.
Mm-hmm. Just when I'm thinking of themes tying things in,
yeah,
I would need more time to go through. I'm kind of more steeped in the past as far as what I know about the area than up to speed, and particularly the last 2 years, it feels like a vacuum in that sense where you're not seeing things on a regular basis, so you're not thinking and looking and asking and talking about things and noticing things. So that it's a good thing that you have Zoom to start getting people on track again.
There's a book, I don't have the name of it, but one of the authors is Norm Seymour. And this is a number of years ago, but it had really a great collection of photos of that whole area. They were focused on really the whole history of the St. Lawrence in that area, and fishing, sport fishing, and various kinds of involvements in it. And you know, that Somerstown, Glen Walter, that whole area is you know, it's a mecca for the fishing.
Oh,
you know,
Alan, yes, the fishing, and of course the Caribou Cameron. What are we thinking about? There is a plaque in that area, but fishing would be great because it could take in everything. Also, is that?
Yeah, the Caribou Plaque, I think, is in Somerstown, but I don't.
Okay.
Oh, there is one plaque that just went up recently in Glen Walter with one of the early military doctors, I think, from the War of 1812. So I think Ontario Heritage Trust did place one by his grave within the last several years, probably maybe 5 years ago or so.
Through you, Ms. Deputy Mayor, if you don't mind me jumping in for a second.
Sure.
And Sherry Lynn, if I'm speaking out of turn, feel free to jump in and let me know. But just hearing some of the comments about Glen Walter and, you know, talking about the history of the St. Lawrence and fishing, it sounds like we have kind of a general theme there. And in terms of location, one that's popping to mind for me is that little piece of property that we own by the waterfront, that little parkland property.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would be a good location or location we could utilize, because we do see a lot of traffic there, people pulling off on County Road 2 and stopping by the waterfront.
Which waterfront, Kelly?
It's a little piece of green space, Penny, along County Road 2. I believe it's just across from
the old Olco.
The Glen Walter Park Road.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the gas station, you know where the gas station is on County Road 2?
Do you mean
Across-
Oakland?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Across,
Okay.
it's essentially across the road, just a hair west from there.
So it's on the north side of Highway 2,
South side.
south side? Oh, so it's right on the water.
Yeah, correct.
I just can't visualize it, so it's okay. I'll get down there. So, okay.
Thank you for bringing that up, Kelly. Yeah, sorry, I just had to pop off for a second. I wasn't sure what all you talked about in Glen Walter, but I know you guys are mentioning Glen Walter and there is that waterfront park. I do want to mention that I am going to be working on some plans for that piece of land, just to make sort of like a passive bike park, just because there isn't a whole lot of parking there. And we kind of want to avoid some people parking on the side of the road on County Road 2. But I mean, people could park at the gas station and go across, but I am hoping to get some better signage at that park for the waterfront trail. So I know you guys had kind of mentioned maybe showing the history of the waterfront trail. I am hoping to put some sort of signage in there regarding that, so it's more informative for people. And then also some other elements like a bike repair station, a bike parking area, some benches, just to eliminate people from parking on the grass in that park, just because we did have issues with that. So if you guys were thinking of putting a plaque in there, there's going to be some other amenities there. So it will have that traffic, and especially with bikers, cyclists, or walkers. So it would become a good area to have something like that, in addition to what we're already proposing for that site. So
Just for the benefit of Penny and Alan here, I'll share my screen real quick. Hopefully I'm doing this right. Do you guys see a map?
Yes.
Okay. So do you see my cursor moving? There's probably a
Yes.
big lag. Okay. So that's County Road 2 at the bottom, and where obviously you see where the water is. Now where my cursor is right now, that's the gas station. So, and then, if, you know, and then Glen Walter Park Road is the perpendicular road. So what the township owns is this piece here.
Oh,
If you see my
Oh,
mouse moving.
so is that just east of Boundary Road, or I can't see?
So if I zoom out, which will make it a bit harder to see, I'm zooming out a bit more. I have poor internet, so it's going to take a while for it to load. But Boundary is still this boundary is almost, it's at the far left
okay.
of my screen. And
What is
then
it?
if I,
What's the major route that's just coming down? Just right.
Purcell.
Oh, that's
Purcell.
Purcell. Oh, okay, Purcell
Yeah.
Road. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason I pulled it up is I was trying to orient myself with this area and the Nutfield track as well, building on the comment that Penny had made earlier too. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, it's an interesting, the plans are that Sherry Lynn is looking at. I mean, I think it already is an interesting spot for people, and what Sherry Lynn is describing there will just make it, you know, that much better, right? And you know, if some of the earlier comments that Todd had made about, you know, picking a site that would have traffic, I think it's a good one. And also, you know, Glen Walter doesn't have a lot of plaques to start with, so.
So
Oh,
before we move on, Deputy Mayor Jaworski, I'm taking notes here for the minutes and you know, to be able to prepare a report for council. So I'm just going to maybe share back to the committee what I've interpreted through this discussion so far, just to make sure I'm on the right track. So as of right now, it's looking like the committee is favoring plaque in Green Valley that primarily focuses on the rail history and also to incorporate a bit of the French education piece. And then now a second option is in Glen Walter on that piece of green space, talking about the history of the St. Lawrence fishing and the waterfront trail. So based on my interpretation of the discussion so far, we kind of have two general ideas for two plaques so far in the discussion. Is that kind of in line with what you've taken from this conversation so far?
One thing I would add on the Green Valley one is I think it's more like history of Green Valley, including there'd be the rail piece, maybe the pavilion, maybe the Franco-Ontarian education question, like, you know, sort of so that there's a, you know, combining them all together. Well, to see what fits, obviously. I mean, the design, but I'd say it's more of a general Green Valley thing versus focus on the rail, but definitely rail is key to Green Valley history.
Okay, perfect.
I mean, I certainly like the waterfront trail, what you've just described there, Kelly. Alan and Penny, how did it sit with you?
pardon?
What Kelly described for feedback on a plaque at in Glen Walter on the water. How does that sit with you? Is that something you're in favor of?
I think Glen Walter area does require a plaque, and I'm not quite sure what information or picture you're considering putting on that particular plaque, but I don't perhaps but I like the location.
Mm-hmm.
At this point in time, Todd, would it be fair to say you're looking for general theme and concept, and then from there you're going to go out and get the photos and content? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, if I may, that's exactly what we're looking for at this point. So if if we have an idea of what these plaques will depict and where they will be, that's great, because to your point, that just leads into the next discussion is who's got the photos and where can we get information on this. And so I just want to, I've heard these conversations or the comments that have been made in the last 15 minutes, and they're all great. I love the idea. I'm so happy it was brought up about that little piece of green space along the river. As soon as the idea of fishing in Glenmalta was brought up, I'm like, that's the best place to put it. So that's fantastic. And I was just making notes as well. Is there still any thought to North Lancaster and the Flax building there?
One idea I could think of offhand was, I for some reason, I think of the railway going through North Lancaster, but Alan, does that and would?
That would be a big detour for it.
Okay,
Yeah, no, it's probably about 5 or 6 kilometers south of the railway line.
Does the committee still have appetite, just based on the conversation from our meeting last week, in pursuing something on the peanut line?
yes, I would too.
Yeah. No, I think Ian, spoke very well on that. He mentioned also the moccasin line, but I guess the one thing is where would it go to be where there's some congregation, some gathering. That's the one. I mean, Williamstown, yes, but I mean, is there not some other? Would there be some other?
I believe off of 34, there is the old is it an old train station building there? I know there's a few locations where they used to be, and I don't know if some of them are still existing. Might have to look into that a little bit further, but it could be at one of those types of locations. Then you're highlighting a location that used to have a train station back in the day.
Mhm.
Lancaster had a really great train location that was much enjoyed by local residents. I've heard quite a few stories, and they've got some nice old pictures about it.
And then
And
anyone that's on the peanut line would have access, or they would see it. So it would have that traffic.
One of our past members of the Heritage Committee, Sunny Sandlands, does she
Yes.
not live in the? Did they
That-
restore the
Yeah. Oh, I know which one you're talking about.
Glenbrook.
Yeah.
Glenbrook? Glenbrook, yeah. And that would be on the peanut line?
Yeah.
I believe it was. We just have to ask her and she'd let us know. But yes, Earl used to, yes,
Okay.
talked about it quite a bit.
Yeah.
Glenbrook.
I mean, I'm definitely in favor of something along the peanut line. And, to the point of where like locations, I mean, where the Williamstown Fair is, I mean, off of 19, there could be, I mean, that's, municipally owned property there. But I think also in this case, we could look at working with the fair board, even though it's not municipally owned. I mean, it's, I think it's as close as you can get that's not municipally owned in terms of publicly owned land. So there's an option there, or to like Sherry Lynn's point, like where the peanut line crosses 34. There might be some land there, although that would be more just for probably the traffic who are on the peanut line or using the peanut line, versus if it was in Williamstown, there's the foot traffic who are not necessarily on the peanut line who would see it there as well. So, but definitely there's an interest that, like I've heard expressed at council before, about getting more plaques on the peanut line, or signage, I guess would be more what it was called at the time, more signage. But this could be sort of maybe a centerpiece signage for an eventual like continuation of maybe more signage, but maybe not as elaborate.
So in terms of content for this location, we'd just be looking at doing something with the general history of the peanut line and,
Mhm.
its origins and how it came to be municipally owned recreational trail, essentially.
Kelly, do you know, I'm very reluctant to say that this would be our last meeting about this issue to discuss content and location, simply because both Shannon and Ian are missing, and he has a distinct flavor from his, and so does Shannon, living in different areas. And I hate to say to Todd, this is what we think, without having their input, I guess you'd call it. But just that would be my comment.
If I could make a suggestion through you, Deputy Mayor Jaworski. So ultimately, at the end of the day, we do have to bring these suggestions to council for their final approval before we can give Todd the green light. And what I might suggest is if we could come up with, and it sounds like we have come up with 3, general ideas. I can prepare minutes and include a detailed description of each of the 3 items we've discussed today and send that out to the committee, including Ian and Shannon, and request feedback by a certain date. And then that way it gives Ian and Shannon the opportunity to review the minutes and provide their comments to me before I bring a report to council for their final decision.
And would you send it to all of us, Kelly?
Yes, absolutely.
Because the only thing I got from the last minutes were the very brief.
Yeah, and typically
Yeah.
minutes are they tell us in the municipal act the minutes are without note or comment, so you're essentially recording decisions that are made at the meeting.
Yes.
But for the because we've had I would say a bit of a heartier discussion in terms of actual decision making, and really narrowing down some locations today, I can put the details of those locations and concepts in the minutes so that Ian and Shannon have a good idea of what the committee's recommendation to council will ultimately be, so that they can get back to me with any comments before that recommendation is made.
And that was, I mean, thank you for bringing that up, Kelly, because I was going to ask if that's something that we could do, is engage them through, basically your draft staff report, I guess, essentially, to have them be able to provide comment that way. One thing, though, I would suggest is I would say, another option that was discussed was, I would add that in, is that, with the view that this is potentially going to continue, that there, another option that was discussed is North Lancaster. I think it's to show that the committee was looking, all around South Glengarry, including, areas that maybe are underplaqued, to put it.
And the theme for North Lancaster, that was around the flax.
Agricultural history. Yeah.
Well, you see, Madam Chair,
Penny.
some of us are less accustomed to Zoom meeting and like sort of the dynamics of discussion for a new topic, which this was for many of us, and we aren't actively involved in all the other things behind the scenes. So I think that's why I find it difficult to say, sure, go ahead, do what you like, because I'm not sure what you're doing. Well, no, I just mean I'm not sure. I don't know all the information you're using, is what I'm saying.
Right, and I think we're still, though, it's still preliminary, right? We're still discussing concepts. It's still,
Okay.
Like the imagery that would be used, the layout. I mean, that's still, and correct me if I'm wrong, Todd, but that would be sort of that would be then the next step, is sort of putting together more specifically what these ideas could look like.
Okay.
But
Yeah, so basically the way the process will unfold is that at some point we'll make some determinations in terms of what these plaques will be about. What takes place then is we meet with the artist and we say, here's the story or the depiction we're looking for. He then goes back and does a sketch and provides us with that sketch. We circulate that amongst the partners so they can see what we're looking to put together. And then after the sketch is done, a watercolor is developed that once again gets shared to make sure everybody knows we're on the same page. And then ultimately the plaque itself is produced and we share that. I don't want to leave you with the impression though that at some point, let me back up a little bit. At every opportunity, there's an opportunity for people to provide feedback, but the farther the train gets down the track, the more difficult it is to then rip the plaque apart and start from scratch.
Yes.
So I just want to make sure that's clear. If we get to the end game and we've got a plaque done, but somebody raises their hand and says, I don't really like it, it's tough at that point then to go back to square one and start over again. So that's why we try to make sure everybody's on the same page as we're going along.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. One comment I'd also like to make though, like if we go, like if these are the ones we're recommending, the Glen Walter one, Peanut Trail, and Green Valley, is I think it's very important that we try and engage some people specific to those communities or folks who are like expert in sort of the history of that area, because I foresee that there's people who have a real wealth of knowledge who might have exactly what you need, Todd, to do something really really great and beautiful. So I'm not entirely sure how to. I think I know who to reach out to in the Glen Walter area to try and get some of those folks, but I'll admit on the Green Valley side I'm a little bit less connected. So I might.
There's one person who stands out, and that's Ron Lajoie.
Okay.
Green Valley, but he's really he's worked on a variety of projects of telling stories. I mean, people in the community story and so forth. So, but he's very familiar with Green Valley, and so he's great contact. I mean, he's he's an educator and so forth. So.
Perfect.
And I think that this is an area as well, Deputy Mayor Jaworski, where staff can also help connect Todd with, we interact with these community members very often through their various initiatives. So we know a lot of the movers and shakers throughout the various communities, and especially, I was very much involved in the when we put together the Glengarry Roots Heritage Trail. So became, made a lot of connections with our local history buffs through that project as well. So staff can certainly help connect Todd with people in the community who can provide some of that knowledge.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you very much. Okay. So go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, if I could just ask Todd, would it make sense if we had either ideas or a piece of information to send them to you? Do you have an email that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's where if you've got any information or any feedback, by all means, I'll give it to you right now. So it's TLIHOU@sdgcounties.ca.
TLIHOU at
SDG, Stormont, Dundas, Glengarry, sdgcounties.ca.
Okay.
And I'll share Todd's email in my correspondence to the committee with the minutes from today's meeting.
And Kelly, in terms of a document that can be shared amongst, I'm sorry if you said it, amongst the committee, particularly the two who are not able to be present. What kind of, because you want this in front of council. I mean, it wouldn't do it for next council meeting. Is that what we're going to aim for?
I'll likely aim for our next meeting on the 7th. So what I'll do is I will have something in writing to the committee by Monday, the 24th. I'll put together the minutes and perhaps a draft staff report that I'll send over on Monday, the 24th, and ask for feedback by the following Monday, the 31st. And then that gives me ample time to have the report on our agenda for February 7th and keeps us in Todd's timeline as well.
Great. No, I think that sounds good. I think a week from next Monday for feedback. I think that's fair for hopefully for the folks who weren't able to attend today.
And you're sending it to us, Kelly, on Monday?
Yeah, so I'll aim for Monday, just by the time I take up the minutes and get a draft report ready, I would say I can have something to you midday Monday.
Or Tuesday, sure, I get. So we'd have about 5 days at least to just, okay, thank you.
Great. Okay. All right. So I think we're good then, I think for today's meeting. I think
I certainly have enough ideas and information to get a draft ready for you guys to take a look at and get to council.
Okay, great. Well, we appreciate you doing that for us, Kelly. Thank you very much. All right, and so thank you, Todd, for joining us. Or did you want to say something?
I just wanted to thank you all. This is gold as far as we're concerned at the county level. This is absolutely the information we need and the context that we require. So thank you, Madam Chair and Kelly and Sherry Lynn, as well as members of the committee. I know it's been a couple, 3 hours now worth of meetings and there's more time to be dedicated to this, but thank you very much for your efforts to this point.
Okay, well, thank you for bringing the project forward and bringing it to us from the county.
Thank you.
So thank you, everyone. Thank you, and we're looking forward to the notes there, Kelly. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, so I guess I need a motion to adjourn.
Yes.
I need a motion to adjourn.
I motion we adjourn. Penny.
Thank you, Penny. Anyone opposed? All right, good. All right, so we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your Friday.